What's up everybody, hope you're all doing well. In this video I'll be taking a look at Fallout 3, the now 16-year-old open world RPG set in the popular post-apocalyptic universe that many have come to love. Fallout is a series which, to be frank, I've slept on a bit too much. I've only played the opening hours of Fallout 3 on launch, and have since only given New Vegas a proper playthrough. This is a franchise I kept telling myself I'd get around to playing, and I finally did. This has piqued my curiosity, so I will likely check out other Fallout games in the franchise and also plan to review Skyrim as well at some point, so if you want to see my takes on these, subscribe as it really helps me out. Fallout 3 was an important game for Bethesda, not only kicking off the post-CRPG era of Fallout, but also being Bethesda's first Fallout game. Interplay developed the original Fallout games, with Tim Kaine, now Obsidian, at the helm. After Interplay experienced a financial downturn, they ended up licensing out Fallout and eventually selling the IP to Bethesda. Todd Howard and his team have since put their own mark on the franchise, which many may have loved and some maybe not so much. But no matter your opinion on the matter, they've built the Fallout franchise into the most popular it's ever been, with 2 new mainline entries to the franchise, as well as the online Fallout 76 and the recent hit TV show. Fallout has become a different post-apocalyptic beast to what it was, which all started with Fallout 3. As this is a Bethesda title, it's important to discuss mods. Bethesda's RPGs and mods are 2 things that seem to go hand in hand. With just a glance of Nexus mods, it will reveal that 4 of the top 5 modded games are Bethesda titles, boasting billions of downloads collectively. Fallout 3, while not being in the top 5, is not far off, and there are plenty of mods to explore. These range from 4K texture reworks and reshades to help give the game a more vibrant look, removing that greenish tint everything seems to have, all the way to mods that completely overhaul the gameplay mechanics, including one called Tale of Two Wastelands, which combines Fallout 3 and New Vegas together, allowing users to travel back and forth between the worlds and utilising the updated systems available in New Vegas. To keep this review as fair as possible though, I played the vanilla Game of the Year Fallout 3 with no mods installed. But this is a very customizable experience for the ones willing to dip into the modding world. As a small disclaimer, I will also be avoiding any significant story spoilers as this is still a review after all. With the preamble out of the way, let's move on to the actual review and see how Fallout 3 fares in 2025. As this is an old title, I want to start by talking about the technical state and presentation of the game. My biggest concern going into this was, will I even be able to run the game without mods, or will it constantly crash? To my surprise, it ran with almost no issues, at least when it came to crashing. There was a few quality of life features missing and some small problems here or there, which I could work around. The major problem for me was the lack of borderless windowed mode. This meant that whenever I alt-tabbed out of the game, it minimised. Not too much of an issue, until I discovered that there's a bug that when minimising Fallout 3, there is a chance that you can't maximise it again, making me having to restart the game multiple times due to me having to alt-tab out. Other than this, I did not experience any crashes. I think I was lucky with this, as others have reported some crashing here or there online. Still, nothing major to stop people playing the game. The other main issue I had was mouse sensitivity on the menus. It's so much faster than it is in game, and it's still too fast, even if I set sensitivity to the lowest level. Now, I'm sure there's mods that can fix these things, but I put up with them and got used to them while playing. The presentation of the game itself still holds up reasonably well. There are a lot of reused assets here or there, which is to be expected in a 2008 title. There is also this weird greenish dirty tint to everything that I mentioned before. I wasn't a fan of this and wished I could disable it. However, it contributes to the atmosphere and is integral to the game's original appearance. Most textures still looked reasonably good and faces were surprisingly more detailed than I expected. Although, I'm pretty sure every character has exactly the same body, with very little detail on it. I was pleasantly surprised by the game's performance overall. It also met expectations of how I thought it would look, sometimes actually looking better than I imagined it would. This is something that you're going to have to make your own opinion on looking at the footage. People have very different tastes with graphic styles, especially when it comes to playing older games, so let me know what you think. I did also encounter various bugs while playing, like NPCs not spawning or sound effects playing on repeat until I went into the next zone, but these happened very infrequently, and no way did they impact the performance of the game. With technical state now covered, let's talk about the actual game itself. Fallout 3 starts off with you, well, being born. The game presents you with the character creation screen, a character creation which I was actually pretty impressed with. There's not a ton of options when it comes to hair and beard styles, with me not being able to find the right styles that I wanted, instead settling for the options available. But it does have facial morphing features, and red, green, blue colour mixes allowing you to get some more specific choices where you want them. There was no body customization though, just the face, and compared to some modern titles it is lacking, but for a 2008 game however, there's plenty here to satisfy most people. Once you finish character creation, you enter the tutorial section of the game, where you start as a baby and select your special, which is basically your main stat template, and I will go over that in a minute. After selecting your special, you progress through scenarios aging you to a young adult through your life at the vault, getting shown little scenarios here or there and introducing you to the way the narrative will be told by getting you to interact with the fellow residents. This goes through your birthday, getting you to talk with childhood friends and the bully in the vault, later taking you to when you're a little older and ready to sit your exams. I enjoyed these parts as it got me straight into the game and set expectations relatively quickly, showing you how the dialogue system works alongside basic combat controls, including first and third person shooting, the VAT system and melee combat, all of which I will touch on later in the review. I did also encounter my first bug here though. Not all of the characters spoke to me when they were scripted to do so, with Butch being the vault bully that refused to interact with me until I ended up assaulting him just to see if I could get a reaction. Luckily this didn't brick the game or cause any significant problems. They call the exam you must take the GOAT. It's a selection of questions, some quite funny, asking you what you would do in certain scenarios. A kind of wacky personality test. This helps set your tags for you. Tags are boost to your skill points. It tries to place them based on where it thinks you'd want them from the exam answers you've given. I ignored this and set my tags manually, although I did still find this a nice touch and added to the world building for life in the vault. After all these events play out, your dad leaves the vault and you end up having to scramble and chase after him. The escape from the vault providing a small opportunity to affect the way you end up escaping, showing you that there are multiple ways to tackle situations in this game. The game lets you completely customize your character's stats after escaping for one last time. Overall, I enjoyed this intro. It gave me a pleasant taste of what to expect, and it didn't overstay its welcome. Although, I felt like Bethesda was trying to blind me with the amount of fades to white screens that were happening. My one main gripe was with the special. Not the system itself, but how it's first presented. For those not familiar, special stands for Strength, Perception, Endurance, Charisma, Intelligence, Agility, Luck. These are the main stats you can invest in with 40 points at the beginning. The game initially presents us with a charming children's storybook, which tells you what each stat does, but lacks the finer details. This at the start felt like an important decision to make, and I didn't have a lot to go on except for the summaries they give. I knew, for example, that if I chose Charisma, it would help me talk to people, as I assumed strength would affect carry weight and melee damage. There are some key details though, which can really give a boost. Intelligence, for example, gives you additional skill points to allocate when you level up. This information is not present when selecting your special. Luckily, the information does come up in the editing menu at the end of the tutorial, although players can easily skip this and ignore it, leaving them without the knowledge of what they've chosen. This may not be an issue for experienced Fallout players, but as a semi-newcomer, I felt like I was not 100% on the effects of my choices, and it felt more of a daunting decision than it needed to be. With all that being said, I think the special stat system in this game is still a very good way of making basic stat templates. The choices also feel very meaningful, not only changing the way you may interact with quests, but also changing the way NPCs might treat you. I learnt, after doing some research, that if you set your intelligence to the lowest, you will have different dialogue options and people will treat you like you're brain dead. This is great attention to detail and shows that these stats can have a real effect on the game. After completing Fallout 3 and reflecting, I do also feel like trial and error is a major theme of the game. You will make choices and learn the repercussions later, and I don't think choosing a bad special will completely ruin your playthrough, instead add to that trial and error gameplay theme. After leaving the vault, the main game begins. The world outside, though bleak, inspires exploration of the wild wasteland as you begin your journey. The only goal I had? To find my dad. The game hands you complete control at this point, and you can sail wherever you want to go. It provides a guide by using an arrow in the compass, but it's up to the player if they want to follow it. Or you could do what I did and get sidetracked in the world. The Wasteland of Fallout 3 is a massive map, and in many ways, the main character of the game. I started off as many would who will pick this game up, and that's going to Megaton, the first major city settlement located close to the vault you emerge from. This acted as an ideal hub for players to explore. Upon entering, I immediately encountered local Sheriff Lucas Sims. The area's history came up naturally in our conversation, as he explained it to me. He then talked about the unexploded nuke sitting in the centre of town. This was my first side quest, and a sign of things to come. One thing I noticed quickly is that Fallout does not put markers on your map or big icons to tell you where the quests are. Instead, they are delivered to you by you stumbling upon them. These are all designed to be discovered on your own, not only encouraging exploration, but rewarding it. It does not pull any punches either. The first side quest I got was where I wanted to disarm a nuke in the middle of a busy settlement. To put this into perspective, depending on how I ended up tackling this quest, I could have completely annihilated Megaton and most of its NPCs from the map. This is an insane side quest to be your first, and sunk in the thought that my decisions can change the game. After speaking with the sheriff, I continued to explore Megaton and got to meet with all the characters living within. These settlements are handcrafted to where everyone inside has a purpose. Everybody has a house, a place to work, and a life outside of that. It's not as deeply simulated as something like KCD2, as we would see today, but it's as close as with the technology available then. I ended up exploring the local church and meeting the local cult, the Children of Atom, who worship, well, you guessed it, the atom, all praying to the atomic bomb resting in the centre of town. I explored the local inn, and this was my first run-in with a ghoul, a radiated human who was mutated, with scarred flesh. My encounter with the ghoul taught me about the culture surrounding ghouls and how the smooth skins, which is what they call the regular humans, discriminate against them. I ended up going on another side quest repairing the local water pipes around town, just as a result of me exploring the water plant. All this is in the first settlement I encountered. What I'm trying to convey is that it did a great job of pulling me into the world, teaching me a few things without it feeling too forced, while also getting across the importance of exploration and discovery, along with everything I needed to explore the wastes. There are very few of these larger settlements in the game, but there's a lot of love and care where they do exist. It was at this point I met Moira, a woman who seems infamous to some from what I've discovered online. She gave me the quest to help create the Wasteland Survival Guide, a questline which I didn't realise at the time will have me going all around the map. This was so I could experience and learn what the Wasteland had to offer. Most of this boiled down to fetch quests, but mostly interesting ones, teaching me many different gameplay systems along the way. It's also very rewarding, so I'd recommend picking it up, especially for newcomers. It was at this point I set out into the wastes, already sidetracked from my primary objective. The Wasteland itself, outside of the main section of the city of DC, has plenty of empty space. I'm not talking Red Dead 2 levels of empty, more like 2 minutes of space between explorable buildings and places of interest. This isn't a bad thing, as it is a post-apocalyptic wasteland after all. I actually found that the empty spaces between points of interest made it so whenever I could see buildings on the horizon, or anything that looked interesting for that matter, they drew me in like a moth to a flame. It made it easy to see what I should go to rather than trekking through countless empty ruins. There's also some standout unique locations which I just got the urgency to explore when I saw them. Places like Tenpenny Tower, a skyscraper hotel overlooking the wastes, or Rivet City, a large settlement set inside an aircraft carrier, split in two. I even ran into something not from this world with unique weapons waiting for me as a reward. There is also, of course, the famous Washington landmarks like the monuments, various memorials, and the Capitol building. The White House, unfortunately, has been reduced to rubble. Of course, I can't forget to talk about the other vaults, ready to be delved in from around the map as well. 6 in total, with 2 explored in the main questline, outside of the starting vault, each with their own story to tell. I wish there was more of an upfront story of these. The lore and experiments which happened inside are interesting, but you have to go searching terminals and logs for it all. Exploration is the name of the game, but many people might skip these, which is a shame. There were also some special locations that I thought would be more extravagant, but ultimately I found uninspired and underwhelming. Places like the Robco facility, which just looked like a bland factory with the words Robco placed on the outside. I was hoping for something of greater design, knowing Robco from the TV show and their importance in the universe. To break up the travelling between the points of interest, there is the random encounter system. This ranges from travelling traders, hired guns, to encounters which can even unlock a new companion for your travels. These occurred too infrequently for my preference, and I would love to see more. There were a lot of encounters that were based on who I met or choices that I made in the story, however, which kept me grounded to the world. This also makes me curious about what other encounters I might have had if I did things differently. Even with 60 hours of playtime, exploring the wastelands was still incredibly enjoyable and rewarding, with plenty left to discover. They add even more incentive by adding collectible magazines which help increase your character's skills, alongside collecting bobbleheads, which provide a large bonus and also provide one of the few ways to increase your special stats, giving you even more reason to check out each location. My least favourite part of the map was actually the main city space of DC. I found that a lot of the areas look very similar and a bit bland. I mean, this is something I was expecting playing a game from 2008, but the main issue I had with the city was the subway system. The subway system connects different parts of the city together, almost acting like bridges between different districts. You can't walk around the city without encountering walls that require you to go underground to bypass. I found it easy to get lost traversing the subway, not quite knowing the exact station to go down to get to the building I wanted to explore. For questing, this is fine. The marker shows you the way. But trying to get around on your own, this quickly became an annoyance to me. The subway themselves are full of enemies, and normally all use the same prefabs repeatedly. This makes some sense, as it is a train system after all, but it didn't make it fun to walk around for as long as the game made me. The city's not all bad though. There are some parts of the city which really shine. Just like arriving at the Technology Museum, looking down the strip that reveals all the landmarks laid out ahead, surrounded by trenches used by various factions fighting their own war. The real reward of all the exploring is of course the side stories. One moment you're minding your own business trying to survive, the next you're sorting out a feud between two wannabe superheroes dressed in ant and robot costumes. There are so many side quests and situations I got myself into. I'm sure each player who got stuck into Fallout 3 can recall a special memory from their head. The sense of discovery I got made these moments even better. I did not head to a quest here symbol on the map, instead I stumbled into these unaware and got caught off guard. I could list quite a few side quests that I loved. The thing that really shined to me is that the game does not hold your hand. When you pick up a quest, it tells you where to go and what the aim is, but not necessarily how to achieve it. It really lets you get creative at times, providing multiple ways to complete the quest, while also having multiple outcomes as well. Many of these don't change the core progression of the quest directly, but the ending can change quite a lot. A few quests also make a difference to the fate of certain settlements and how people around the Wasteland might react to you, leaking into some of the main story stuff as well. The game also uses the opportunity to introduce you to smaller factions around the wastes. All the main factions you'll meet through the main storyline, but you can also still encounter them while exploring. In my experience, these quests are a major part of the game's content. If you end up playing this, I would 100% invest time in exploring and taking in the waste that Bethesda have created in this game. Right, now onto the main story. I'm going to talk a bit about some missions along the way, but be rather ambiguous, so I don't spoil anything. If you'd rather skip, then I've added chapters to the video to help you do so. The main story starts off with you trying to find your father and leads you to Megaton. Even with the main quest, you can follow the set path provided, or go your own way about it. I ended up doing the more traditional path. This involved asking around for information about my father, greasing a few palms and doing a few favours, which helped me locate my next step, which was heading to the local radio station. This is where I was first introduced to the Brotherhood of Steel, one of the main factions of the game, and a persistent faction in the Fallout franchise, as well as the legendary radio host, Freedog. It was at this point I actually did regret not doing this part of the questline sooner. This was all because this exact mission unlocks Galaxy News Radio, a radio station you can access all around the map, playing a lot of catchy songs from the 1940s and 50s to keep you entertained across the wastes. Also songs that you'll probably end up humming to yourself whenever you leave the game. Not only that, but the radio station is run by the previously mentioned Freedog, who will comment on different quests and activities you get up to when exploring the wastes. A very nice touch, again adding to the feeling that your choices matter, as the stories and opinions that occur on the radio all happen because of choices that you made. This also adds a nice lore-friendly reason for why some people know who you are before they even meet you. After helping out at the radio station, I continued the search to find my dad. This led me through major settlements and introduced me to a bunch of characters along the way, with plenty more side stories and locations, which of course distracted me as I looked. Eventually leading me to a vault, not any regular vault though, if there is such a thing, but one that was running a virtual life simulator, one similar to a VR world called Tranquility Lane. This is one of the most memorable missions for me personally, as you end up trapped in a simulation, controlled by a single being that you have to escape from. I will leave all that for you to discover however if you've not played it. It's a lot of fun and I don't want to spoil any part of it. Later in the game you end up working towards a project to help reshape the Wasteland and improve conditions. You also get introduced to a second major faction, the Enclave, remnants of the original government of the United States. All of this culminates into a memorable set piece at the end, and depending on your choices throughout the campaign, there are also multiple endings awaiting you. That's about as much as I will get into on that. I enjoyed the main story and felt it did a pleasant job of building the world up and getting into the politics of the Wastelands, at least at a surface level. The story isn't the best campaign out there, but it's good enough. It's very short though. I would say it clocks in at maybe 10 hours from start to finish. Saying that, I easily racked up another 50 plus hours exploring the world. Completing the game opens up some additional side missions, alongside some slight changes to certain locations afterwards to explore. The Broken Steel DLC also extends the main story, but I will touch on that when I discuss DLC towards the end. We are pretty deep into the review now. It's about time I talked about the core gameplay. Exploration will occur throughout the game. When talking to residents of the Waste, you'll be greeted with the traditional Bethesda zoom-in camera whenever you interact with someone. You'll also get yourself into plenty of fights. You can experience this all in first or third person. For anybody who has played any Bethesda title before, the gameplay is very similar. All the gameplay is directly affected by stats. So I'm going to start by talking about the character progression system. As mentioned in the game's tutorial section, you start off with a stat template, abbreviated to special. Your special dictates many things, from your carry weight to your crit chance and everything in between. Special attributes also affect what are called skills. Skills are stat lines you would expect to see in most RPGs. Things like speech, lockpicking, sneak, medicine, and also skills like small guns or energy weapons, which increase the damage you deal with that kind of firearm. This game provides a set amount of points based on your intelligence each time you level up. You can allocate these points into any skill of your choice. As mentioned, there are also other ways to level these up. That being by collecting bobbleheads and magazines located across the map. Me personally, I'm more of a fan of the Elder Scrolls system of you leveling up by doing things. This makes it feel more natural to me as you get better by literally doing them and practicing. I didn't hate the Fallout 3 system though. The skills didn't feel like they made much of a difference as the increase for me was very gradual. What rescued it was the perks. When leveling up, you also receive a perk of your choice. These normally have a few prerequisites like minimum agility score or minimum level requirements. Some of these offer an enormous boost in certain skills like speech or bartering, or the opportunity to increase one of your special attributes. Others increase the effectiveness of your VATs or your defenses, for example. There are also these more niche ones which I found to be the most interesting. Perks that introduce new ways to dispatch enemies with stealth options or allow you to collect bounties from villainous characters. Some even add additional dialogue options and provide additional ways to tackle certain side quests, like Lady Killer for example. A perk that increases the damage you deal to the opposite gender, but also opens up additional dialogue options when talking to them. These choices made leveling up more exciting for me, with my only gripe wishing there was more of them. Aside from leveling up and collecting collectibles, there is no other direct progression system. You get XP by slaying enemies, completing quests, and doing activities like picklocking or passing speech checks. There are, of course, other stats that come from gear, which affects your gameplay. The gear in Fallout 3 starts off bland, but gets more interesting as you progress the game. You can slot a various assortment of armor pieces, which will provide you with a stat named DR, which stands for damage resistance. It's not long until you find armor which can increase other stats, like skills previously talked about, such as lockpicking. You can also increase special attributes with armor too. You get pieces, for example, that give you strength. Although not an incredibly in-depth system, it allows me to do some min-maxing. I was satisfied after finding armor that optimized my build. I hope this is something which is built upon later on in the franchise. Weapons are more of the same. They start off bland but get a lot more interesting as the game progresses. My main issue with weapons was the lack of customization. Every 10mm pistol I stumbled upon was the same as the last, the only difference being the durability of the weapon. I found the same weapons being dropped repeatedly at the beginning of the game. I later learned that Fallout 3 has a level scaling system, where everything scales with you. This also includes the loot. This means that level barriers prevent me accessing many guns. This leads you to encountering a lot of the same weapons for a long time until you've progressed further in the game. This got to me as I like a lot of variety in combat and I wasn't getting it at the start. This did improve as the game went on though. As I started completing side quests and exploring, I also started encountering unique weapons. These are basically the same weapons but with a unique appearance and a slight twist to them. This helped keep it fresh and I ended up trying to collect every unique I could get my hands on. When you get through the end game and through the DLCs, there turn out to be quite a selection to go through. The weapons themselves don't provide you with any stat bonuses, just the damage they do and the ammo that they use, which is quite important as ammo can be very scarce, forcing you to diversify your arsenal. The only stat both weapons and armor have in common is condition. You can repair these items yourself if you have enough repair skill, or seek a vendor who can help. As the condition got lower on my armor, so did its resistance. On the weapons though, it's a bit different. Not only did the damage go down, but also the accuracy. It also started causing jams when reloading the weapon. The attention to detail here is great, as it could turn a high damage accurate weapon into a spray and pray gun. This made condition a more important factor to stay on top of. The repair skill helped a lot here, making the investment feel worth it. The combat of Fallout 3 is unique. It's not the best gunplay I've played by a long shot. It feels somewhat loose and simplistic. Unlike the more focused FPS games, it lacks the immersive animations that add weight to your weapons. What it does provide, however, is more of that RPG element. By this I mean you can target areas of an enemy and inflict damage to that limb, allowing you to be more tactical in your approach. They have made doing so extremely useful as well. Shooting swarming enemies' legs will slow them down, allowing you to kite them easier. You can even shoot the gun out of the enemy's hands by aiming at the hand holding it. This surprised me when I first did it, knocking the rocket launcher out of a raider's arms, preventing a lot of bad news from heading in my direction. This helps make it feel more like an RPG combat rather than just a shooter with RPG elements attached. I had a lot of fun with it. There's also a system called the Vault-Tec Assisted Targeting System, or VATS for short. This allows you to briefly pause the game and queue up attacks at limbs of your choice, then playing cinematic shots of the actions you queued up attacking the target. This helps players who struggle to aim, and it can also be buffed for increased damage over regular shooting. Your positioning and perk setup seem key here to get the chance of hitting high. I played without VATS most of the time, opting to use it when dealing with stronger foes or for cinematic moments. For me, it slowed the combat down a bit too much, and there was a little bit of frustrations with my bullets missing, bringing back some bad memories of me playing XCOM. I also didn't find that my build needed to use it that often. This remains a very valid and fun option though for the people who opt to build around it. I've talked mostly about shooting in combat, and that's what I focused on, but there's also an extensive selection of melee weapons for the melee enthusiasts, as well as some pretty fun heavy weapons for the players that like to make an entrance, including a literal mini nuke launcher named the Fat Man. In combat you will face a variety of enemies, such as the local fauna and wildlife, robots and bandits, to the giant super mutant behemoths. There isn't a ton of variety, and you will fight the same enemies repeatedly, but there's still many memorable fights. I will never forget the first time I encountered the super mutants, and then just minutes later seeing one tower over the military unit I was with. I will also not forget my first Deathclaw or Yao Guai encounter, which took me by surprise as I was just casually exploring the wastes. Overall, I enjoyed the combat in Fallout, and don't think I would get bored with the future titles if they continue to develop on this. The lack of customization and variety in the weapons is my main gripe. It's an RPG though, and it would be wrong if I didn't mention that you can also have a companion accompanying you. These companions are characters you meet around the world and through side quests, with only one of them appearing in the main questline. I found these companions a bit two-dimensional when it came to interacting with them. They made a big difference in combat though, with my companion making fights that I would have struggled with significantly easier. It is worth noting that they can die, so I had to outfit them with the best armor I could find and enough healing items to prevent this. This also stopped me from choosing fights and letting my companion do all the work for me, as I'm sure we've all done in previous titles where we've needed to. Finally, I wanted to talk about the DLC. I played the Game of the Year edition, which includes the 5 expansions to the game. These are all accessible from the start, except for Broken Steel, which becomes available post-campaign. I held off playing these for a while, as I didn't want them to alter my experience of the base game, and I'm very happy I did. These DLCs give you access to some of the most powerful weapons and armor, strong enough to throw the balance of the game completely off kilter, making it a lot easier for you to stomp your way through scenarios. Of course, you can remove these items, but you'll likely continue to use them once you have them. The first DLC I played was Operation Anchorage, one where you find yourself in a simulator which puts you in the eyes of an American soldier during the Great War. Here you will fight through corridors of Chinese soldiers, spanning few different scenarios in Alaska as you try to overpower the Chinese infantry. The reason for doing so is so that you can prove yourself worthy and unlock a room containing weapons and treasures from the Great War. This plays a bit arcadey with health pickups and selected loadouts for the missions. I enjoyed my time with this one, but it overstays its welcome a little bit towards the end. This ran for about 3 hours. It did also give me some of my favourite rewards from all the DLCs however, so it was definitely worth doing. The second DLC I touched was Mothership Zeta, a DLC where you get abducted by aliens and end up having to escape their mothership. This was actually one of my least favourite, which is a shame because I was looking forward to it. The best thing about Fallout 3 to me was the exploration. Mothership Zeta is just an endless corridor of enemies. It does reward you however with a lot of loot and a cool player house at the end, so it's still worth doing. I just didn't enjoy my time with this one as much as I expected to. The third DLC I did was Point Lookout. This was a much better experience, moving you to a whole new map and giving you more places to explore. Again, I didn't find the main story of this one too compelling, but I enjoyed the time I spent going around sightseeing. There are also some great new side quests in this location, including one containing a Lovecraftian reference. Next up was the Pit. This one, as the name might suggest, takes place in Pittsburgh, as you enter a slave camp undercover. This, like Point Lookout, adds a new map, although one that you're not as free to explore. There is still elements of free roaming to it. I got sucked into the story and atmosphere with the Pit, a lot more than the others, and ended up having a great time in this DLC. The Pit is a wonderfully crafted environment, and the lore and the new enemies I encountered felt right at home in the Fallout universe. Finally was Broken Steel. This one is a must play. It pretty much extends the main story, so I don't want to get too much into it for spoiler reasons. You basically assist the Brotherhood in performing certain tasks and nicely rounds out the campaign. Something I read was definitely needed from the original ending of the game. I had a great time with this one and would 100% recommend playing this if you picked it up. There was not a single DLC that I outright hated. They're all worth experiencing in their own way and provide a heap of gameplay benefits should you want to capitalise on them. I would just recommend settling into the main game before going on these adventures. So, it's that time again to conclude another review. How good was Fallout 3 in the year of 2025? I think Fallout 3 holds up well in modern standards. It does show age in its presentation and certain gameplay mechanics, but some of that brings charm. The world building and the sense of exploration is also impressive for a title of this age, excelling in places where some games in the modern era still fail. The combat, although a little loose and simple, is still fun at its core. The biggest surprise to me being how well it runs with no mods. That's not to say I would not install some quality of life mods if I were to play this again, the lack of borderless windowed being my biggest annoyance. I wouldn't just install quality of life mods though. The large modding community also adds a lot of additional gameplay options, and keep the game feeling fresh for multiple playthroughs. At the end of the day, people have their own taste to what they would like to play. If you're looking at this and the presentation is good enough, and a few of the dated systems don't bother you, then I would recommend you pick this up, as I've got 60 hours of fun out of this title, and I'm now looking to play the other Fallout games. There's a lot of great ideas here to build on. I've not played Fallout 4 yet, but I hope this works so Fallout 4 can run. That I will have to see. Please let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and if you're a Fallout 3 fan, I'd love to hear some of your favourite moments when you're playing the game. If you liked the video, please hit that like button. If you want to hear more of my ramblings, please hit subscribe as it really helps me open the door for future opportunities. As always, I hope you have a great rest of your day and thanks for watching.